The People's Democratic Party has inaugurated its Presidential Campaign Council and is revving up to run what will most likely be a tight race to the 2023 presidential election. The issues causing trouble inside the party have become more complex. The ongoing talks between Atiku Abubakar and Nyesom Wike have not yielded so much. But the party and its presidential candidate continue to make overtures of reconciliation. There is so much at stake for the PDP, as this will be the party's second major effort to reclaim power at the center after it lost to the All Progressives Congress in 2015. Well, for Atiku Abubakar, this is also the second time he will be the presidential flag bearer of the PDP after the 2019 presidential election, which he lost to President Muhammadu Buhari of the APC. The major bone of contention is the emergence of a presidential candidate from the north, which upsets the balance of power rotation in the party. The Wike camp insists the national chairman Iyorchia Ayu, who is from the north, should resign and make way for the selection of a new chairman from the south. But it seems Atiku and the PDP are reluctant to make this concession as a condition for peace. Well, before I bring up my guests, let me welcome you properly to the program. This is Politics on Sunday. I am Femi Akonde. Joining me now is the spokesman of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, Charles Aniagwu. He is also the Commissioner for Information in Delta State. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I must also wish Nigerians a happy independence anniversary. Now,
the PDP has inaugurated its campaign council, but tell me how Atiku Abubakar, your party's candidate, is handling the issues threatening to tear apart the party.
I'm telling you that we are moving on, even as our elders are also continuing with reaching out to those persons who seem to be aggrieved about certain developments in the party. We have responded to this issue severally. We made it very clear that the laws governing the party need to be respected. We have also made it clear that almost the leadership of the party, in this case led by our presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, and the vice presidential candidate, as well as the chairman of the party, seem to be on the same page on a number of issues with individuals who are making certain demands. And that the only difference that we've seen is the issue of timelines. There is nothing that is being asked by those who seem to be aggrieved that the leadership of the party is not comfortable with, except, of course, those other issues that may, of course, offend the provisions of the party's constitution, and which is the issue of almost like total demolition of the entire structure of the party. They have mentioned the need for the chairman to step aside. That is not so much of a big problem. But the challenge is when you ask the chairman to step aside and you're also demanding that the chairmanship position move from the north to the south. When that happens, it means that you are asking that certain other positions need to be tinkered with, because by the provision of the constitution of the party and by the arrangement, there seems to be a hierarchical order that flows in a certain manner. In which case, where you have the chairman, there are other provisions within the positions within the NWC that flows along that same line. So it's not a question of just the chairman moving. Those other positions most likely are going to move. And for you to move those positions, you may need to also ask other positions in the southern part of the country to revert to the north. And that means almost a total surgery of the National Working Committee of the party. Is this something that we are going to be able to achieve given the timelines from now to when we are going to have the election? We don't think so. We believe that embarking on that journey will likely more like affect the structure of the party at the moment, may also have effect on our ability to move as a cohesive body to prosecute the 2023 general elections. And that being the case, we have continued to plead with our leaders who are making those demands to tarry a while. And that immediately after the elections, we can begin to look in that direction, so that we first of all take a look at the issue of the big elephant, which is prosecuting the election. And thereafter, we can now come and take a look at some of those issues that speaks to equity that they are canvassing.
Well, some people say Atiku Abubakar's chance at the poll is slim this time around because of the breakout of Peter Obi. They say this might affect the Southeast bloc votes that before now were sitting comfortably in the PDP's kitty.
Let me tell you that those who may think that we are disturbed about the a number of other persons who may have left the party to seek for the same position that our principal is seeking. We are not. That is what democracy offers to everybody. Plurality of views. The issue of the Labour Party that you mentioned, we are happy about the development. And why are we happy? Because he has helped to energize the voters. A number of persons who ordinarily may not want to be involved in this political process have also come on board. But what that speaks to is the fact that Atiku has been a talent hunter far before now. Don't forget that in 2019, Atiku was the one who identified P2B and made him his running mate. That characteristics of identifying individuals who can add value is what distinguishes Atiku in this whole contest. Atiku demonstrated it when he worked with Obasanjo between 1999 and 2007. And that characteristics of being able to identify people irrespective of their ethnic background, religious affiliation, or geographical divide is what stands Atiku out in this particular contest. One major challenge which Atiku have clearly identified as his #1 agenda is the need to effectively and efficiently manage our diversity. And so that being the case, we are excited that most Nigerians now are coming on board to recognize those issues that Atiku have long ago identified, which is the need to address the many challenges confronting us as a country, be it in the area of security, in the area of lack of trust, in the area of management of our economy to the extent that we need to be able to provide jobs, or in the area of ensuring that we have an educational system that function, or also in the area of devolving power to the component units. These are some of the issues that the young men and women that you have seen are identifying. But Atiku have long identified it, which means they are agreeing with Atiku that those things that need to be done for the country to function need to be fixed. And we believe that Atiku is one man that is very, very well qualified and eminently positioned to be able to address those issues. And so that's why we are not disturbed, because they are only agreeing with what Atiku saw a long time ago.
Well, we have seen some recent opinion polls on the chances of the presidential candidates to clinch victory. But it seems none of them favors Atiku Abubakar. Is this indicative of a possible outcome?
Well, the election is just about, almost about 5 months away from now. We are interested in reaching out to Nigerians. We are not in a position to begin to debate with any polling agency, because we have not done one for us to begin to cast aspersion on anybody. But what we believe is that we are going to be reaching out to Nigerians, as we have continued to do, and that Nigerians are the ones that will, at the end of the day, assess us. They will be the one that will approach the ballot and cast their vote. And so we are not disturbed about any poll, irrespective of what the result is saying. Even if the result says it favors us, that does not mean we're also going to sit down at home, because we'll be talking to Nigerians for them to understand that these are the issues we're putting on the table. Whether there is a poll that predicts that we are going to win, or a poll that predicts that another person is going to win, what we are going to be interested in is to continue to speak to Nigerians, to let them know what we are coming on board to do, to let them know the ability and the capacity of our candidate to address the many challenges that confront us today. And that's why we're not disturbed about whatever poll that is flying around. We don't want to join issues with any poll, because that's not who we are. We have said we are going to stay with the issues, and I don't think at the moment that the poll is the issue. The issues are very well known, like I said earlier, to Nigerians, and those issues we will address. And we believe that Nigerians, in the course of time, will be very much convinced, just as many are already convinced, that Atiku is a man who has got the ability to be able to make the difference and add value to our country and our existence as a people.
The Nyesom Wike factor is one major hatchet yet to be buried. How is your candidate handling this? Because some people feel he has treated the Rivers State governor badly.
I don't know what you mean by saying that there was anybody being treated badly. There was a contest, and after that contest, Atiku Abubakar, to the best of my knowledge, won that election. And most Nigerians are quite agree that the PDP primary was one primary that was very credible and then very, very free and fair. And that being the case, there is likely in every election to be a winner and a loser, and Atiku happened to be the winner in that election. So the concept of anybody being treated badly is what I cannot understand, except somebody have to give me another explanation as to where anybody was treated badly. And then the issue of what you see as the disagreement, I have said earlier that the wheel of democracy grinds very slowly, and that is also part of that wheel being having to grind slowly. There are individuals who may not come on board at the same time, but what we are doing, which is of course to ensure that we reach out to Nigerians, like we have inaugurated the campaign council. It has left the bus stop, but I can tell you that in the course of its movement, it's going to bed at different locations, which means different bus stops. And as it stops, different individuals are likely going to board the vehicle or the train. And once they board the train, we will continue in that, along that trajectory. We believe that these individuals who may have different position at this moment will be part of those who will join the train in the course of the stoppage at different train stations. And so we are having hope that all the attempt to reach out to these individuals who we believe are also leaders in their own right in the party will yield result between now and when the election will happen. We are quite confident that these are party men who will believe in the course of time will see reason not to hurt the party by whatever position they are taking. We believe also that a number of Nigerians who are, though not members of our party, have seen the need to join the train because they see in Atiku so an individual who, though will not proclaim that he's a messiah, but have got the ability to be able to address the many challenges confronting our country today. We do not believe that Atiku has the know-it-all mentality. Good enough in all his conversations, he says, we. And that means that he's not going to address the issues alone. He will carry Nigerians along. He will listen to people. He will look beyond the political party. He will look beyond the shores of Nigeria and also, of course, invite Nigerians in the diaspora who have got what it takes to make a difference. And that being the case, we are quite confident that as we make progress, every other person in the course of time will join us in this train for us to have a common front. Because it's our desire that will carry everybody along, whether in the party or outside the party.
Indeed, but the vice presidential candidate also has a lot of work to do in the south of Nigeria because there is this feeling that he betrayed the interests of the region by supporting the emergence of a presidential candidate from the north, going against the PDP power rotation arrangements.
I wouldn't know what this issue of betrayal means and where it's coming from, because what we have suffered in the course of time in this whole episode between when the primary of the PDP took place and now is what my very good respected writer, Chimamanda Adichie, a lady we respect so well because of her poetic values and her knowledge, what she described as the danger of a single story. What has happened to the PDP is more like the danger of a single story, where the story is being told from one perspective. We didn't want to begin to tell our own part of the story because we believe that in trying to unify the party, in trying to lead a very peaceful campaign, we decided not to join issues with anybody. Otherwise, if we had gone out to begin to also explain the different role played by different persons in the course of this whole thing, you would have been able to know those who went about betraying anybody. But let me, for the purpose of giving you a hint, inform you that in the course of the debate about the zoning in the PDP, Atiku made it very, very clear that if the party was going to zone to the southeast, that he was going to jettison his ambition, because he believes that it's only the northeast and the southeast that have not had a fair share at the #1 position in our country. And that these two places ordinarily should first of all have the right of refusal. Of course, you know Atiku is from the northeast. But when it happened that some other leaders from the south who possibly were interested in that position kicked against it and said that it should be left open to the entire south, he saw that it meant that the southeast may be shortchanged. And that if that was the case, that there was the need for him to also take a shot. That ordinarily, if everybody had agreed that we zone to the southeast, that he was very much up for it. That was also the thinking of Governor Okowa, because initially Governor Okowa wanted to actually go to the Senate. But when that happened and it became obvious that the southeast was going to be likely shortchanged, it made it very, very open. So when individuals talked about betrayal, you begin to wonder whether we are not suffering from that danger of a single story. But where we leave that because we are interested in having a peaceful electioneering process, we are interested in bringing everybody on board. It is not the amount of story that you tell that will unite the people, but it is about a conscious effort to bring everybody on board. And that is the desire of Atiku, that irrespective of the aspersions being cast in his direction, he has maintained a very dignified and golden silence. And that, I can assure you, he's very much ready to continue to maintain, in spite of whatever invectives that may be poured in his direction. And so that is the way it is. Governor Okowa did not betray anybody. Atiku did not betray anybody. It happened that a candidate have emerged in the party, and once a candidate emerges, in line with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, there was going to be a running mate. And because of their moral situation and some other issues, it was obvious that the candidate was going to emerge from the south. And so when the candidate that had been accepted by everybody in the party came in his direction because of his pedigree and level of achievement as governor of Delta State and his records even while in the Nigerian Senate, there was no way he would have betrayed his party by saying he was not going to come on board. Because doing so will mean that he does not respect the fact that a candidate have emerged. Doing so meant that he did not want to respect the fact that his party was already in the contest and they needed to be able to provide a common front for the party to be able to right the wrongs that have been visited on our country in the last 7 years by the ruling APC. And so you could understand why it became necessary for him to also accept wholeheartedly the request by the presidential candidate of the party for him to join him as a running mate in the course of this 2023 general election. So it is not true that he betrayed anybody in the south or even in the north.
Well, the PDP was the government at the center for 16 years and Atiku Abubakar was vice president for half of that time. He also contested for the office of the president and lost. What else will he be telling voters this time around? What has changed in his message? Is it the same one that was rejected at the ballot in the previous election?
It's like you have forgotten the story of the first 16 years of our democratic journey. If you remember that 16 years, or if you don't, go and read about the first 16 years. A number of individuals who are telling story about the first 15 years where the PDP heads to tend to have forgotten what we were before 1999 during the military interregnum. And then how they were able to revive our economy and then recreate the middle class. But for the records, let me take you back to that 15 years. And then you will tell me between that 15 years and now which one you will choose. It was in that 15 years that we were able to liberalize the communication industry, such that today we can communicate via the internet. I am speaking to you now because I have data, which is made possible by that revolutionization of that sector by the Atiku Presidential administration. Otherwise, I will need to come to your station for us to be able to converse. Beyond that, it was also in that 15 years that they were able to introduce the anti-corruption agency, be it the EFCC or the ICPC. You need to also go and look at the records and understand the role played by Atiku in that regard. It was also in that 16 years they were able to ensure that our economy, our ports, and our economy grew to the extent that even up to 2014, the Nigerian economy grew faster than any of the economies in Europe. It was also in that 15 years that we had a proper liberalization of the television, the broadcast industry. That though, yes, it started before that time, but immediately by that time, it became so liberalized that today we have a TVC that we can also speak through. I do know that you came in the course of that 16 years. It was also in the course of that 16 years that a number of persons gained employment and the banking sector became so robust that we were no longer afraid of banks having to collapse and then depositors having to lose their funds. In case you have also forgotten, it was also in the course of that 16 years that Nigerians were able to feed because the cost of food material was such that they can afford it. In the course of that 16 years, many other things happened. And so when people talk about that 16 years, I began to wonder whether they were around in that 16 years. I speak as somebody that was very much around, and I also had the privilege as a journalist to cover activities in that last 16 years. And when you compare that last 16 years and the last 7 years, you will see a very big dichotomy between where we were and where we are now. And so most Nigerians are even looking forward to even going back to even 2015, where the bag of rice was 7,000 naira and people could afford it. They want to go back to that 20 years, that 16 years, where they could use 200 naira to obtain a loaf of bread and feed the family. They want to go back to that 16 years, where you could afford to travel from one part of the country to another. Do you want me to tell you more about that first 16 years? If that was the only record that Atiku want to ride on, that was even a good record for the PDP. But beyond that record, Atiku is desirous of not only sustaining growth, Atiku is desirous of taking advantage of the challenges we have had in the last 7 years, the challenges that they may have also gone through in that first 16 years of the PDP, and then put all of them together with a view to addressing them. Because he has garnered knowledge in the course of this past 7 years, in addition to the knowledge he got in the first 16 years. And so when people talk about what we are going to run on, we have got a whole lot of records. One major record that Atiku is going to run on is his ability to headhunt talents. Go and find out the history of the Obasanjo administration. You will see the number of persons that we then called technocrats in the administration, who were not politicians through and through. the impact they played as the poster boys of that administration. Do I need to remind you about the lives of Okonjo-Iweala? Do I need to talk about Chukwu Masoludu? Do I need to tell you of Erufai and many others who came in the course of that administration and played very, very critical role to reverse the very, very downward trend in our economic trajectory to a state where we now began to have hope as a country? And so, if you also recall the issue of debt buyback, you will understand that the Atiku Obasanjo administration made a whole lot of difference in our life. And so those who are talking about what Atiku is going to run on, there are many. But beyond that, let us even talk about his personal life even after being involved in government. Atiku has been able to live what others are talking about now. There are some persons who are talking about taking Nigeria from a productive economy, from a consumption economy to a production economy. Go and look at their records. They are involved in total consumption. They are in businesses that is very much involved in killing other businesses because what they are doing is to import products that people just consume. Atiku is involved in production. Fargo Water produced by Atiku. There are a number of other things. If you want to talk about the education sector, the biggest private university in the northern part of this country is American University of Nigeria. And I know you know the owner. And so when you look at Atiku, he has got a whole lot of things to tell Nigerians. In addition to that, go and look at Adama Farms and see what he's doing there and the number of productive sectors that Atiku have triggered. Atiku is a producer, not a consumer. So those who are involved in the business of consumption should not come and begin to lecture us on how to take Nigeria from a consumption economy to production economy. Because Atiku, he has already practicalized it even in his private life. And so you have seen a man who is living by practical example, not the ones who want to tell you theory. Talk, they say, is cheap. We have seen a whole lot of cheap talks as to what individuals are going to do, yet they have not even been able to bring up a working document. Atiku is the only candidate in this contest that has a working document called My Covenant with Nigerians. Atiku is the only one who has been able to bring out his economic blueprint. What does that tell you? A man who is prepared. Nigeria is in the intensive care unit in a hospital. And if you have a patient who is in the intensive care unit, you don't go looking for a doctor who will go to the market to begin to acquire a stethoscope. You need a doctor who already have his stethoscope, a doctor who is prepared, a doctor who is more or less a consultant. In this whole issue of fixing Nigeria and taking us out of the woods, Atiku is a consultant and not just a doctor who is just an intern in a hospital or in a clinic or in a ward within a hospital. So let us go for the consultant, and that's Atiku in this case.
What is the core of Atiku Abubakar's campaign message that is different from the policies, plans and programs of the APC-led administration? Because even the APC says your candidate duplicated President Buhari's programs in his economic plan.
I wish we had more time. I would have asked you to educate me on the plan of APC because I'm not even too sure they have a plan. If they have a plan, I don't think we will be where we are now. So if anybody says they have a plan, they should tell us what that plan is, because the ones I know they talked about when they were coming in 2015, they have denied that they didn't talk about them. They told us that they are going to ensure that the country is restructured. I'm not too sure you have seen anything that have to do with that. Instead, they have further divided us, in which case a very poor management of our diversity. They told us that they are going to ensure that the naira is strengthened against the dollar. Today, the story is better told by you because you are in the media. You at least conduct more interviews and then read more about these issues. So you understand where we are today. They also told us that they are going to deal a very dirty blow on corruption. I am not too sure that even in the first 16 years of PDP, you ever saw a snake swallowing a naira note. It is only in this administration we have seen both snake and monkeys leave banana and begin to eat money. And so how do you mean that they have a program? Maybe we'll schedule another time for you to educate me. But let me come to what Atiku is going to do and the Atiku plan. The Atiku plan rests on 5 very, very known priority areas. The first of it is the management of Nigerian diversity. And in doing so, Atiku says I'm going to bring everybody on board. That when I'm going to take every decision, I will realize that there are different ethnic groups and different geopolitical divides in this country. And that for every decision-making body, whether it's in the security area of security or in the area of management of the economy, everybody must be well represented so that we do not have the issue of lack of trust. Having said he's going to manage that diversity, the other 4 rest on that. Whether on the issue of what he's going to do to ensure that the economy is brought back on track with a very warm handshake with the private sector, Atiku says we need to bring back the jobs, because when our people are engaged, the very, very productive energies of the youth would have been able to help us to reposition our economy so that we don't need to begin to lack forex. The reason why today we do not have enough forex to finance government expenditure is because we are not productive. It's also because we do not have enough to be able to export for us to be able to have exchange, in exchange, the forex. It is only what is happening from crude that you even see little forex. And that is why you see a whole lot of rationing. You remember what the Buhari administration did when he came in? He put a ban on issue of even having to send dollar or even receive dollar. You know what that did to us? Most of the foreign investors that were playing in our economy had to take out their funds. When they pull out their funds from the stock market, you saw what happened. That led to the collapse of the stock market, which is why in the course of this administration, we suffer. That is knowingly 2 different recessions. I use the word knowingly because you know that we have actually been in recession. The knowingly because that is what the Bureau of Statistics made very, very official. But you and I know that in the last 7 years, we have been suffering from recession. Dear brother and leader in PDP described it very mildly when he talked about stomach infrastructure, talking about Ayo Fayoshe. Stomach infrastructure has become a major problem to the extent that even when people want to vote, they are voting both for their stomach rather than for the advancement of our country. So they don't have a plan. Atiku also have a plan to also devolve power to the component units so that the federal government is not overloaded. That being the case, it means that you are going to take power to those who are closer to the people in the grassroots, who understand the challenges of the people who are in the grassroots. But that's not all. The education sector, which is very, very sick to the extent that going to the 8th month, our children have been at home. Atiku says, no, that is not acceptable. And for that not to be acceptable, that he is going to also have a very, very deliberate attempt to discuss and engage the persons in the academic sector, be they ASU, ASUP, or whoever they are, for the purpose of acceding to their demands and making sure that the students return to school. Because that's the only way you are even going to have a productive economy. If our children are not able to acquire the right education, how can they contribute effectively to strengthen our country? But beyond that, Atiku says, I'm going to ensure that security is dealt a dirty blow. And that once you do that, our farmers will be able to go back to their farms.
Charles Aniagwu is a spokesman of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to joining you any other time for us to take a look at these issues. The country belongs to us. Thank you for this opportunity, and do have a wonderful day.
Well, that is all we have time for this week. Remember, every election is determined by the people who show up. Thank you for watching. I am Femi Akonde. See you next time.